This week, Unreported World comes from a city that's run out of space.
Some of the residents have started throwing stones.
We meet the families learning to live in a place that's overwhelmed by its population.
I don't think I've ever seen such a filthy beach in my life.
We meet the children whose primary school has 6,000 pupils. And visit the graveyard where there's no more room for the dead.
They are digging up a grave over here.
We're in Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Population 20 million and rising. From the moment I first travelled into the centre of Manila, I could see it's a city struggling with a population boom. In 10 years, the number of people who live here has grown by almost a third. And megacities like Manila are springing up across the world. My destination was Jose Fabella, the biggest maternity hospital in the city. It operates on an industrial scale.
Vertelea Liza, 550. Vertelea Liza, punta po muna sa likod.
There are 4 mothers and babies to each bed.
I've counted 8 rows of beds here. 8 rows of beds that typically contain 4 mothers and 4 newborns. And according to the whiteboard over there, since midnight last night, and it's only 9 in the morning now, 207 mothers have been admitted to this ward and 133 babies have been born.
This huge ward is one of 3 in the hospital. It's well equipped, but its resources are severely stretched by the number of mothers here. Elisa Navarro is the ward's head nurse.
What is the capacity of this ward?
123.
123?
Yes, ma'am.
They're almost at double capacity here. This ward is only meant to house 123 women, and at the moment there are 207 mothers here.
I asked why so many babies were being born here.
Hindi na alam kung
She told me most mothers have little idea about family planning.
Elisa says that it's very common for women who give birth here to have already had 2 or 3 babies, and it's not uncommon at all for some to have had 8 or 9 before they come here.
The mothers told me it was hard to make ends meet with such large families. But the Filipino government doesn't promote contraception. This is a Catholic country, and politicians fear losing the Catholic vote. Helen has just given birth to her 4th baby, Zorro.
She says she knows at 26 she's pretty young to be having 4 children, and now that she's had 4 children, she's not going to have any more.
She told me she wanted to be sterilised.
Helen plans to have a tubal ligation. She can't have it immediately because she's suffering some medical complications after the birth. She's going to wait 6 months until she has the procedure, and she says she really hopes she doesn't get pregnant again within that 6 months. She's tired of being pregnant and she doesn't want any more children.
It's so overcrowded, the nurses have to patrol the ward to make sure no one is sleeping on their babies and suffocating them.
From what I've heard from speaking to the mothers here, it's going to continue when they go home, because there they'll be sharing a bed with the rest of their family, and that's often 7, 8 or even 9 other people.
Space is precious in Manila. We drove to Baseco, where 90,000 people share half a square kilometre. The government owns this land, but has allowed people to build homes here. At any time, it can claim the land back. A third of Manila's residents live in squatter settlements like this.
What I'm walking on now is a sea wall. It was built to protect the rest of Manila, to stop it from getting flooded. It's not meant to be a road, but it's been turned into the high street by the residents.
Last year, a massive typhoon hit the capital and hundreds drowned. But people were still living right next to the sea wall in Baseco, leaving them dangerously exposed to flooding.
So this is where people actually live. You see how close together the houses are. Someone's having a wash over here.
New homes are being built every day here, wherever there's a gap in the houses.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hi, hello.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Jennifer.
Jennifer.
This home belongs to the Parapina family.
This is Jennifer. She's the mother of the family. She's got 7 children, and she and her husband share the space here. 9 of them live together in these 3 rooms.
Contagious diseases spread fast in these conditions. Jennifer has tuberculosis. Her children have persistent rashes, but she can't afford to take them to the doctor for treatment.
Did you plan to have such a large family?
Hindi eh. Hindi naman sinadya eh.
Jennifer's 36. She said she and her husband never intended to have so many children.
Ano na lang, bigla na lang.
But she thinks it's a blessing for her. Now they're going to help them in their old age throughout the rest of their lives.
Many Filipinos share this view. It's a reason people reconcile themselves to the poverty that can come with large families.
As well as being their living room, this is where 4 of them sleep. Mum and Dad sleep here with 2 children. Then over here in this room, another 3 children sleep there. You can see there's some bedding here. And over here in the kitchen, that's where another one will sleep.
Their eldest son sleeps just outside the house, in the family's fishing boat.
We've agreed we're going to give Jennifer a bit of a rest, and the kids are going to show me around Baseco. Princess Diana is going to show us the way, and some of her brothers and sisters are coming too. Ooh, you have to watch your step around here. It smells very bad here. It smells very bad.
In this makeshift community, there's no sanitation.
So they've told me this is where they play, this beach, which is so astoundingly full of rubbish. I don't think I've ever seen such a filthy beach in my life.
These children have grown up with the rubbish. This is their playground. I asked 15-year-old Princess why the beach was so dirty.
Princess has told me that this rubbish is washed up from the water. Of course, the people of Baseco add to it, but a lot of it is coming from the rest of Manila. This is the rubbish of such a densely populated city washing up on the banks of the slum here. And by the smell of it, this is also the toilet for a lot of people in the shanty as well. You can really see how every bit of available space here has been used to become someone's home. There's a pontoon here, which is very heavily built up right over the water, and the houses here go right up along the beach, just as far as the ground is solid enough to support a house.
The Parapina family invited me to spend the night in their home.
Do you all find it easy to sleep when you're together under a mosquito net like this?
Jennifer said they were used to it. They never had any problems. I wasn't sure I'd find it so easy. They turned the whole house into a bedroom.
So it's time for bed now. We're all turning in. I'm sleeping here next to the gas stove with Princess, who's been very kind to let me share her bed. I wonder what kind of sleep we're going to have. The neighbours are still making quite a lot of noise. I can hear their TV. But they seem to think that it's very easy to sleep here. I'm going to give it a go. It's about 4:15 in the morning and I'm up because Princess is up. I didn't get very much sleep. I hope Princess got more than I did. How come you're up so early?
Nintay ko pa kasi service ko.
She's told me that she's up this early because she has to go to school. Why do you have to go to school so early?
Kasi maaga rin kasi nagbibili.
She said her classes start at dawn and she didn't want to miss her school bus.
Princess has told me that she goes to school this time every day. There are 54 pupils in her class, and so there's a sort of rota system at her school. Different batches of children go to school at different times, so the school can teach all of them, and she's doing the early shift. That's why she has to get up so early. Bye-bye.
A few hours later, her brothers and sisters were up. They had time to spare before their classes started, so they showed me where they get their drinking water.
Here. From this hose? Aha.
Emmanuel Parapina is 10. It's his job to fetch water for the family.
Emmanuel's told me that there are times when the water that comes out of this hose isn't clean. It's cloudy, it's dirty, and then they don't use it for drinking, they use it for cooking. But he says he has drunk that water in the past and it's made him feel really unwell. He's got a fever from it. There isn't actually any water at the moment. There's not going to be any water until the evening, no drinking water at all.
Like everything else in Manila, the water supply can't meet the demand of the number of people who want to use it. At 10 a.m, it was Mark Anthony Parapina's turn to go to school. He's one of 6,000 pupils at the local primary. There are 1,000 children in Mark Anthony's school year alone. They're taught in 3 separate shifts, with 6 classrooms of 9-year-olds in each batch.
I know that at this school you teach children in a shift system. What are the challenges of teaching so many children in that way?
Mark Anthony's teacher, Evangeline Castro, told me it was frustrating.
She says it's really tough teaching so many children. The 4-hour shifts that they have with each class is not enough to teach them well, and she says they're really rushing to pack in as much as they can into those 4 hours.
The number of pupils means children can't attend for the entire school day.
In many ways, they're only getting a partial education because of the sheer number of children using these facilities.
Manila is a place of economic extremes, but even the wealthy can't escape the effects of overpopulation. The city's traffic problems are legendary. Manilans spend 1,000 hours every year stuck in traffic jams.
The municipal government has tried to get around this problem by limiting which cars can be on the road when, according to the numbers on their number plates. But I've heard that wealthy people have tried to get around this by simply buying more than one car so they can drive different cars on different days.
We joined the traffic and headed out of the city centre.
We've just had word that a slum is being cleared in Quezon City, that's in the north of Metro Manila.
It took us over an hour to drive 6 kilometres. Demolition men in green t-shirts were already hard at work. 2,000 families lived here, and this wasn't the first time they'd been evicted from this patch of land. It's privately owned, and they lived here illegally. But they weren't going without a fight.
As you can see, some of the residents have started throwing stones. They're not trying to stop the demolition from happening. They know it's inevitable. They're trying to protect the material. They don't want the materials of their homes to be taken away, so they are throwing stones to try and make the demolition men leave the materials alone.
If they kept hold of the materials, they could rebuild their houses again. Some of the demolition men were fighting back. Evictions like this happen all the time in Manila. They don't solve the problem, they simply move it from one location to another.
What's your name?
Ludivina.
And how many people lived with you, Ludivina?
Marami din naman dito sa lugar na pwede kaso may mga
Ludivina's 39. She has 10 children.
mataas na.
They all live together in a house here, a house that's been taken apart several times when this land has been reclaimed. They know they have no legal right to be here, but she says she can't afford to pay the rent of the housing that's nearby, and they need to be in this area for their work.
She had no idea what was going to happen to her.
For the moment, her family is going to sleep on the side of the road, but if nothing is built here over the next few weeks, she's going to try and come back.
In the heart of Manila, every scrap of spare land was already taken. This community was built on the banks of a river that runs through the centre of town.
Hello, kumusta? From the road, this looks incredibly ramshackle. When you get here, you realise this is a proper established community. The houses are proper homes with stoves, with areas for sleeping, with areas for washing. And if you turn over here, you can see how under the bridge itself, There are several houses that have been built, and whilst they look really precarious, you can tell from all the wear and tear and the water stains on them, they've been here for years. I'm Jenny. Nice to meet you.
Baiwada runs the local shop. She showed me inside her home.
Nice to meet you.
She said there were 300 families in the community, and almost everyone came from outside Manila. She was born in Mindanao, in the south of the Philippines.
She's told me that even though life is really hard for her here and she's living in very precarious surroundings, she wouldn't go back to Mindanao because she says life would be worse for her there and she couldn't provide for her children's future there. She's staying put here.
Manila is growing by 250,000 people every year. As well as the high birth rate, there's a flood of economic migrants like Baiwada coming in from the countryside. It's a global trend. Since 2007, for the first time in history, more people are living in cities than in rural areas.
In the past, the Philippine government has stepped in to provide housing for those it considers to be in dire need. The tower block complex you can see in front of me was built 13 years ago to accommodate families that used to live on a nearby rubbish dump, the Smoky Mountain rubbish dump. That was shut in the 90s, and you can see the remains of it next to me here. They've called this tower block complex Paradise Heights.
"17,000 people live in Paradise Heights. I went inside one of the 21 blocks. It's become home to many more people than originally planned.
Hello. Kumusta? Hello. Can I come in? Shoes off. Here we go. Hello, I'm Jenny.
Janet po. Dito po kasi may ilaw. Dito
Janet and Alan Sapio share this flat with their 9 children.
Tsaka malamok.
Janet's told me, of course, life is better here than it was on the dump site. The dump site was mosquito infested and she was worried that her children would get dengue fever from the mosquitoes. Also, they have electricity here, which of course they didn't have on the dump site. But she says there's so little space here that she has considered splitting her family up and having half her family live near the dump site and half her family live here just so that they have more space. Here we go. No, don't worry. There's room for me. They're making space for me to go up. Right, here we go.
This was designed to be a single-storey flat, but they built another floor. It turned out one more family was living upstairs.
So up here is where the second family live, and I've just discovered the second family is Janet's daughter, her husband, and Janet's newborn grandchild, who's down here. You can see that this is where they keep all the bedding, which they obviously put down at night time. They couldn't have it down during the day or they would have no room to move. And just to get a sense of the space here, I'm 5'4", 5'5", and I can just stand up tall here. If I had my shoes on, I couldn't do. It wouldn't be very nice to be living in this space permanently because really it's extremely claustrophobic.
There was a similar story in every unit. Large families crammed into tiny spaces. Some Filipinos are trying to find answers. I went to see Jun Palafox, one of Asia's most famous architects, who's based in the capital. He's been responsible for landmark buildings across the world, but his great ambition is to rebuild Manila by building upwards.
If we go vertical urbanism, or even medium rise like European cities, we would be able to accommodate even more open spaces instead of the urban sprawl. And the urban sprawl spreading out horizontally are eating up into the forests and into the farms.
Transforming Manila's architecture is only part of the solution. He thinks there are decades of work to be done.
The infrastructure is not coping with the demand, be it in flood control, drainage, sewerage, water supply, transportation, traffic, jobs and housing.
In a city with such limited space for the living, we've come to see where they bury the dead. This is the North Cemetery. It's the largest cemetery in Manila. Most
Filipinos are Catholic, so they choose to be buried rather than cremated.
The graves are packed really, really closely together. You almost have to clamber over them to get around here.
As many as 80 funerals take place in this cemetery every day. There's such a demand for space here that most people can't afford their own tombs, so they rent them. And if their families fail to keep up the rent payments after they're buried,
My goodness.
this is what happens.
They are digging up a grave over here. Why are you digging up this tomb here?
Eddie told me the rent had expired.
They need to remove the bone so another body can be buried in this space.
He said they often had to exhume bodies. It was part of their jobs as grave diggers. The bones were transferred to a hole next to the tomb. Space is so precious in Manila that even the dead can be evicted. Shortly afterwards, another coffin was lowered into the empty grave.
It turns out that the people who are digging up that grave actually live here in the graveyard. This is Ricky. He's offered to show me where he lives. You can see there is a home that has been built over the gravestones here, with a proper roof, places to hang up washing, places to wash.
Ricky was glad to have found some space for his family to live in.
He and his family have been living here for 4 years. He used to live elsewhere, but he wanted to save up and send his children to school. He says it's much better living here than living in a shanty town. It's much more peaceful and quiet here.
He showed me the crypt where his family sleeps.
7 people live in this tomb. That's not including the body that's under the floors. And it's absolutely tiny. They've tried to make it work. They've built a kind of mezzanine level here, and I think you could fit a couple of people up there at bedtime. But they've made it into a home. It's got electricity, it's got lighting, fans, it's got TVs, DVD players, DVDs. They've even got a fridge. They've built their own toilet inside this tomb. This is for all 7 of them. This is where they go to the toilet, and it's also where they have a bucket shower.
Hundreds of other families have also chosen to live among the graves. The cemetery has become a village of squatters, jostling for space with the dead. It's easy to think of Manila's problems as extraordinary, but they're becoming more ordinary around the world as global population increases.
By the time the children who live in this graveyard are in their 40s, the number of people on the planet will be half again what it is today. Manila's residents have had to adapt to survive in such difficult conditions. They've had to be resilient. And maybe these are qualities we'll all need to learn as the rest of the world runs out of space.
If you want to find out more about overpopulation in Manila or anything else on Unreported World, please visit our website, channel4.com, Unreported World.